Hi, welcome to Quiet Before. I'm Nancy Bulalakaw, and I'm really excited for this conversation. It's been a few months in the making. Today, we're talking about art making and community building with a tight group of art makers here in New York City. So we're just going to start off by asking you all to introduce yourselves. Louisa, do you want to start? Oh, Louis, can you start with introduce yourself, a little bit about your art practice and your title at the Met?
My name is Louisa Lam. I am a security officer at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and have been so for the last 13 years or so. Um, I am a practicing poet. So a lot of the time on the floor is, kind of like soaking up nascent material all day. And I have the privilege to be in a community of folks that are kind of like-minded. And in this, um, in the flow of 13 years, I managed to make wonderful connections with some of the lovely people that are here, with Jevi and Maureen and Fernando. So it was nice to be able to be folded into their practices. In terms of art making, I am not a visual artist, but they have managed to incorporate my poetry into their visual practice, which is great. I personally like didn't necessarily have the vision to do that, and it's really nice to be included in their practice. So yeah, that's me.
Lambert?
My name is Lambert Fernando. I am a senior security manager here at the Met. I've been with the Met for 22 years. It's hard to believe, but yeah, it's been that long. I started out as a security officer back in 2000, shortly after I graduated from college. Well, backtrack a little bit there. Around 98, I graduated from college, and I did a lot of art-related jobs. I was a mannequin painter for a while. I did that for high-end stores in New York. I was a prop stylist. I designed wallpaper. I did anything that I could find that was art related that could allow me to remain an artist and also pay the exorbitant rents here in New York. Even in the late 90s, rent was still pretty high. I was recently kind of by myself and trying to make things work by myself. So I just and also trying to make it in the art world. It wasn't until 2000 that I found the Met, and thank God I did. Just when I first entered the Met and saw all these like-minded people and saw all the art, I was just completely, like I knew exactly where I needed to go. So with that said, it's been 22 years, and here I am. I worked my way up from being a guard. I was a floor guard for a while. Then I became kind of a mid-level manager, dispatcher, and now I'm a senior manager, and I oversee all of the security operations sector here at the Met. And like Louis was saying, there's so many like-minded people here, and I can't imagine, existing one day without my friends and my colleagues here.
Lambert is actually at work right now.
All right, that phone just now.
Shall we? Shall we
Thank you,
begin?
Lam. Jevi?
Yeah. So I'm Jevijoe Vitug. So I'm an artist, which basically I do this practice like like a diverse practice of painting, community-based projects and performance. And like after my grad school in San Francisco, I I I went to New York and going to New York, like there's no, like the idea of like I always remember Warhol said like the success is a job in New York. So then from that idea, whatever job you have just to sustain your art, but like every other excuse me for my English. I always say that English is my second language because like I'm a first generation immigrant here. So I haven't used really, but anyway, yeah, yeah, just recently, like I just realized like just even going to New York, it's really based from like I always remember like Carlos Villa's teaching about, like you have to build your community, you have to be like create your home base, whatever, wherever you go, there will always Filipino. She always told me that. So that's why when I was thinking like, oh my God, I have to go to New York, like everyone's, dreaming to be an artist in New York. But then you were ending up in this, like in reality, like you have to pay bills and jobs. So I end up like, like being the security at the Met, which um another artist also referred me to, like because he was working in a different department, Jed Merino. And yeah, that's why then I end up there. But then when I was at the Met, yeah, I'm just like, I guess like 5 years right now. I mean, I'm still young compared to the, my colleagues. They were, like very active. So when I was there, like I really, wanted to be, like how can I like my work at the same time, um the job like connected to my art practice. So I did this kinds of performance, about security guard. But then when I'm doing this projects, like I met also some artists that introduced me, hey, you do this performance. Like I remember Mariah, like is also a guard. But I thought like we're just in the same team, like because sometimes they change the team. But then they said, oh, you are an artist, like there's also Filipino artists here, like Maureen. So then after that, like, I met Maureen, and then Maureen Catbagan also. Oh, there's also arts like he mentioned about Lambert, like there's also a bunch of art. So until, like the idea of like, like I felt like I'm alone doing this practice, being frustrated, like coming from other place. But then when you go here, you find all these people, and then you have also the same, like sentiments, but then you create like a comfort zone and become a community. So that's how it was started. Then me and Maureen created this in 2017, I guess, the avant-garde, like the idea of like like guards, and then we curated also shows in other residencies. So yeah, basically that's my art practice, like the idea of like, like connecting my life experience, and also, I mean, directly to my, what do you call that one? Yeah, like job. So yeah, sometimes I'm mumbling. So yeah.
Okay, so I would love to revisit the shows that you curated with the residencies around the idea of being a guard in a little bit. But I'd love to hear maybe some background from all of you, just to get like a context. The common thread is that you all, for on different levels, work security for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and you're also you're all art makers as well, and you're also Filipino American. So these are the common threads. How like are there a lot of Filipino Americans in working security at the Met, and how many would you say are practicing artists?
So it'd be a good time to confess that I am not Filipino American. I find a kinship with Fernando and Maureen and Jevijoe because I grew up Pacific Islander, and there's just it was. I think we have a shared sensibility in terms of work ethic, in terms of um, seeing humans as humans and trying to accentuate, what we have in common. But yeah, not Filipino American. So I'm sorry. I don't mean to
Yeah. Well,
infiltrate. But like,
no,
like,
not at all, not at all.
yeah.
Let's widen the net then. Are there a large amount of Asian American security art makers at the Met?
I'd say I'd say there are. I mean, they come and go.
Yep, yeah.
There's some turnaround here. A lot of them pursue art careers and continue their art careers, their art practice while being a guard, and then um, make it in some way, and then they leave. In the time that I've been here, there's There's been many that I've collaborated with. I mean, this whole place is uh, just there's just so much collaboration here. Not just guards, but with we collaborate among the departments. There's a whole spirit of collaboration here, which is one of the things that I love most about this place. Um, and in the galleries itself, there's always a sense of community and collaboration. Just imagine, within the gallery, Nancy, there's 3 posts, right? And there's always 4 per team, right? There's a guy that's always going to be relieving, but sometimes you get lucky enough that you're in the gallery, you're in this post with 3 of your artist friends, your like-minded people who are always making art, having ideas. Just imagine that pairing, and just having like something usually with that scenario, something like you come up with an idea in the morning, and it'll kind of ruminate over the course of the day, just by kind of talking about it, interacting on posts, and by the end of the day, it's a fully realized conceptual piece, right? Um, when I was a guard, there was this project that we used to do. It was the Exquisite Corpse project. Are you familiar with the Exquisite Corpse, the surrealist parlor game, Exquisite Corpse?
Mm-mm.
Where the surrealist would take a piece of paper and fold it up into 3 or 4 folds, right? So in the beginning of the day, we would have this piece of paper, at least the guards that I hung out with back in the day when I was guard. I do a drawing during one of my breaks, fold it up, hide it, and pass it on to the next guard. And he'll go on his break, do a drawing, fold it up, pass it on to the next guard. And at the end of the day, this incredible drawing.
Wow.
And we did that for years. And we actually had a show about that. I think it was in 2009, at ABC Network. It was fantastic. I mean, that's just to give you a sense of the way we kind of make work together. And in our breaks, we're always talking about art. We're always talking about projects, and kind of inspiring each other that way.
Yeah. And do you feel like Louisa included as honorary, the kind of magnetism for Filipino art makers to be working at the Met, how do you think that what is the magnetism? Are you doing some of the hiring, Lam?
Yep.
Or
I
yeah.
am. I'm going to say possibly that 75% of the current guards here are artists or have some sort of art background, whether it's design, architecture, whether it's music, or literature. There's always something that they're doing that's related to art, and it's great, and I look at that in people. I mean, there's not many qualifications that you need to be a guard at the Met. You just need to be a serious person, right? You need to be serious about the work and know your responsibilities, which is to preserve and protect the art for generations and generations to come. Once you know that, and once you have that respect, you're in, and a lot of times, even if you're not an artist, you become one. It's you're surrounded by art all the time. Just imagine that you're in the galleries, and all you have to do is stare at the work or listen to the docents and the curators as they walk in, and you're watching people observing the work. Art becomes part of your life regardless, no matter what. It becomes part of your psyche. It becomes part of your subconscious. It's in your dreams. And just imagine what that does to the creative person. Right?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
but also I like to add the idea of like even in the museum, like you have also this kinds of community, but also the like sort of like clusters, like me personally, I have this like a community of guards who are like an artist, which is like sometimes we hang out in a lot of like art openings in Chelsea. We have this kinds of meetup, and then we also have this like we call it barangay, like barangay in Tagalog. Yeah, it's like a small unit of society in Philippines, like barangay. So we have this like a barangay met, in which we have this kinds of like a chat in Facebook. Like sometimes we are like for Christmas party, for like before we used to have that like very active, but some guards who are Filipinos, but they're not really, I mean, not practicing artists, but they're museum guards, are retired. But before we have this kinds of a meetup, hey, we're going to have a like a Christmas party before December. Then we're gonna have, like sometimes we meet up in restaurants in Queens, and also we have this also different like groups like the union, like we have this like union workers who are also artists that like having this advocacy in general, like city workers. Like sometimes we also go to this like gathering in Manhattan for like all kinds of issues about like just like working, like what do you call that one, like city workers, yeah. And also you mentioned about the like the idea of like a Filipino, like like when I was saying about Louisa, who was you were born in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, born in Hawaii.
Yeah. I remember like Paul Pfeiffer, but like how that like Filipino, that identity, if you're because me it's like, of course, like in terms of like like I was really born in Philippines, but then how that let's say that kind of second generation uh, migrants, like which is when I was, it always come up to me about even like Carlos Villa, like how like this kinds of ethnographic referencing, like it's much broader than Filipino. Because I remember when I was in school, I was even asking him, hey Carlos, that's the thing about Carlos, like during I mean, he doesn't want me, in Philippines we call it sir, mom, like your teachers. But then when hey, don't call me sir, that's only in Philippines, call me Carlos. So then it's like sometimes we have this conversation, like doing a critique. But yeah, he never really mentioned about his work. But sometimes I ask kinds of this silly question, like, hey Carlos, those because he has this work, like it has this tattoo, it's very
Yeah,
iconic, like like it's this like
yeah.
a photograph of him, and then he put this kinds of tattoo. And then I told him, hey Carlos, that's Mori, like like New Zealand, it's not even like pintados in Philippines, because in Philippines they have this tattoo here. So then he was just going to have this smile, but he doesn't explain himself, like, oh yeah, it's like for me it's like it's boggling, but then it's like boggling. But now it's like I realize, it's like, yeah, when you think about, like they're like what's Filipino, who constitute Filipino, like it's very complicated, the history of like colonial, how the European colonization, they divided, but we are in the same family, the Malayan archipelago, the Asia Pacific Islanders. So which is in Hawaii, they have some words that are really Tagalog, Austronesians, like in general. So then I realized, like, yeah, it's still an unexplored territory. That's why when I was thinking again, like the idea of like the avant-garde, that's why I'm also interested with, like, actually when I got this job like a museum guard, I was so excited because, oh my god, like now it's like legit, like the idea of like, like you can play with the idea of like avant-garde and then security guard. And also like Villa is always saying it's like you always, I mean, I always remember this, like self-looting. Like sometimes you're complaining about yourself, like you are so, like to the point like self-hatred, because you're searching your identity. But then it's also the best, like using your body as a like a critique, like a critique to, I mean, to critique society, but using your own body. In which when I was thinking about Carlos Villa too, like he's using his body, his portrait, his face, his action, as a, as a form of criticism, not himself, but it's also, the society as a whole. So that gives me this kind of idea, like being a frontline, as a guard, like when you think about the meaning of vanguard, like they're the frontliners, like even you're still on that kind of like a path that you don't even know what's going that leads you, but then you just keep on searching. And then I guess that's a very, I don't know what the term, like Filipino, Southeast Asian, or Islands Pacific,
Mm,
islander, that the idea of like navigating the unknown.
mm,
Like
mm,
sometimes you are the first one on your family, like me, I'm the first one in my family to be an artist, and then they will always ask me, are you gonna be successful in the future? But they just want you to say that you're gonna, they just want to be, secured for you that you're fine in the future without, being independent to them. But the idea of yeah, it's like you're going to this path, but then it's like you're not sure.
yeah,
But then as you progress, yeah, then you're creating your own identity, you're creating your own community.
yeah,
So I guess that's the best that I've learned with the Carlos Villa. That's also, like very applicable to our community right now. Like we still kind of figuring out, what's this identity, what is this, blah blah blah. But
yeah,
then as long we are together, like we already, without knowing, already we're already building this kinds of sort of, like identity in the process. So
yeah. Louisa, do you have any thoughts on your background, your thinking around community and how that's played into your collaboration with Jevi, with Lambert, with your community at the Met?
So the Filipino American presence within, particularly in security at the Met, like they have a movement isn't quite quite the word, but like they have a very strong community, and they self-identify very strongly. You hear like the Filipino language, like Tagalog, like being spoken like in the hallways, just like greeting each other. And like there are certain communities and cliques within security at the Met where like that's quite insular, but the Filipino Americans that I've come across in security are like quite the opposite. Like they are very inclusive. Like they'll like joke around, invite you to barbecues, invite you out to the bars, and like they have their own, like there's like the Woodside contingent and then the Inwood contingent, and like they'll always invite you, they'll include you, and that's just, it's a nice part of it, just because like you see like the spidering out of their extended family, and they're very much they don't discriminate. They will include. It's like, hey, you eat, come, like you make art, come, like, and it's something that's I didn't know I was missing until like they turned up. I'm like, oh yes, this makes a lot of sense. And like, it helps in terms of supporting each other while one is making art, but also just like in the day-to-day of the labor, like if you're standing next to someone who has got your back, is a nice person, is like, a functioning and like joke making adult, it just makes it easier. It makes it more beautiful. It makes it, and like I say, I would never have necessarily imagined myself being in a performance art piece with Jevi and Maureen. And it's sort of a funny thing. We focused in on 4 pieces by Asian Americans at the Met, and because the nature of things, it was going to be a limited amount of what the collection would have that was representing Asian Americans. So you can't be really picky about it. They were Japanese American pieces, and they were being represented by us, like 2 Filipinos and a Chinese lady. And we were doing like, performance art in a gallery, which doesn't really happen at the Met. So it's like layer upon layer upon layer of like, sort of like, well, why not? Like this is happening. Like this makes sense right now, here and right now, with this community, this made family, and you just kind of roll with the punches. Like,
Was this a Vanguard show?
absolutely.
Actually, have a video clip of that if you're interested in seeing it. It's really kind of beautiful. I have it queued up. I can share on my screen.
Yeah.
Here, transformer, here wings that break bone. Here is not enough, never enough. Shelled torso and bent shield. Here, silent rows of flutes, flaming gaze, a sphinx on Oedipus, limbs scattered like loneliness. I blend classics for selfish reasons. Say, old Hercules, marble grizzled and centered, lion's mane, framing his creased, steady eyes, seated, pulling a thorn from his foot. I want to be the thorn.
Yeah, the idea of like, like we're the front, like a frontliners, like even that one is our first time to do it in like like mixing like a guided tour, but also we're still figuring out like, wow, how do we present this without being, like how to do a performance without even performing, like the idea of like as a guard. So it's really, but it's
Yeah. Yeah, Jevi, how did it come about?
yeah. So this particular project, it's like it's more of like the idea of like, like how can we push, like the presence of like Filipino, and even the idea of like like Asian American in the broader sense in the museum. Yeah, but not just this particular work. It's more of this. Yeah, I could always say, I will always mention Carlos Villa, the idea of like when Carlos Villa said like there was one ask him like, where's the Filipino art, when you
Yeah.
go to art school, and then it's like there's no such thing as Filipino art, like Filipino American specifically. I mean, I went to a library when in grad school, there's no even like like specific, like even what's contemporary Filipino art, like Southeast Asian, Asia Pacific, what's so it's the same when I went to when I went to Met, like this is the Met, this is the highest, this is the largest museum. It holds the encyclopedic, when you think about the art, from the art, from the ancient to contemporary. And then we're guarding like what, like 3,000, and there's no even like single like Filipino that will speak for me, like represent me. So that also gave us the idea, like maybe we can do this kinds of projects, like how can we, like when you go to the Met, the only thing that represents you is the bulul. When you go to the south, to the oceanic, as if the Filipinos are already done, like they're already part of that history, but it's in that bulul. But hey, we're present here, like we're breathing, we're living, and also, so that's how we did this kinds of maybe what's the best, like, okay, the museum will not collect our work, I mean, but I
Yeah.
guess in performance is already a step, like we already step
Yeah.
in the big picture of a museum, like institution.
Yeah.
So that's how we came up with this kinds of maybe we do this kinds of performance in institution, but not as a critique also, but it's like a play of, like avant-garde, but also, like connecting embodying the collections, like the idea of like I will always think about museum as a, like as an empire, and they're just flaunting their colonial conquest, like you're just trophy with them, even me when I was thinking like standing there, like I feel like I'm a trophy, like with all this philanthropists seeing us and serving them.
Yeah.
But then how can we play with that kind of it's a playful, like
Yeah.
we're guards, but also, we're there. The idea of just there is already a representation of you in a big, institution. But yeah, then we just did this kinds of research about Asian American artists, and then we find out like, man, like we're not even alone. Like we were just laughing when doing this research, because like even in the 19 like 20s, there is all these artists, and even like Ming Wong, I'm not sure it's
Oh, Martin Wong. So yeah,
Martin Wong, like who he worked at the Met, right? At the visitor
at the gift
services.
shop. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
like the idea of like, oh my God, these artists are now recognized, but during their time in the 80s, in the AIDS crisis, and during those gentrification in Lower East Side, they were never been mentioned about him. I mean, people within the community, they know him like Wong, but in terms of like art history in general, like nobody really knows about him. So but then these people gave us, like affirmation, like, okay, we're doing the right path. The same like when I think about Carlos Villa, like it's just now that like the institutions are beginning to recognize him, but
Yeah.
during his lifetime, like you haven't even shown in major museums like MoMA, Guggenheim, Whitney. I guess Whitney has a one collection in 1970s, and that's it. So I mean, this kinds of a questioning, and also it being inspired with other artists, build this kinds of like gut feeling. Okay, Mao, let's do this. Let's make this project.
It's a funny thing because like we had a really short timeline, so we weren't able to secure like the official videographer from the Met. But I believe it was Jevi who was like, hey, I mean, we have footage on CCTV, right? Security has footage of this. So, I mean, do we know anyone that would give us this footage? And Lambert, we had Lambert.
Yeah.
I
It took a
love
little
that it's,
convincing, actually.
I mean, the layers of meaning, the fact that you use I love the angle. It's beautiful. So like, what was this is not really that important, but what was the process of getting the Met to support the performance?
That one was on Maureen. She addressed every month they have a cultural focus in terms of like, Black History Month, Women's History, Asian and Pacific Islanders. And she submitted a proposal to special events regarding the Avant-Garde project early on, saying that this would be a fantastic opportunity to explore the Asian American artists within our modern collection. And they approved her proposal. So yeah.
That was open to the public.
It was.
Yes.
Yes.
There were actually 2 performances, correct, guys? There are 2 performances.
Yep.
One was open just to staff, and then they opened it. It was so successful, they opened it up to the public. It was very, very well received.
Yeah. Like
That's
because the first one is more like a trial. So we had this kinds of trial, like, so the idea, like because like any other companies, like Met, like they always have this kinds of staff activities. So it started with that kind of like sometimes we have this kind of like like a Black History Month, and then we have this Asian like Asian History Month. So we have this kinds of like within workplace that they're gonna have these kinds of suggestions, like activities, and then that's how we pitch. Like they're not even familiar that we are an artist, of course, like just the staff, like, because sometimes, oh, you have to invite this, or maybe we can invite this artist. And then during that meeting, we also suggest, like more like, oh, we are also artists. We can do, like a performance. And then we send this, like our website, and they were surprised, like Bindi, that we've been doing these projects for like 5 years, 3 years prior to this thing. So they were really interested, to do it. But for the staff, like, it's not open to the public. But then when we did this, like a dry run, like a sort of rehearsal, and also they also making like suggestions, like this. So I mean, they really like it, and then they said like, yeah, like we can also do like a staff presentation and sort of public public presentation, which is, yeah, we're really grateful with like the support of the Met. And they even like I thought it was like not a big deal, but for me, when they put it on the website, even our research and the poetry of Louisa, is like, oh my God, like Louisa, like even Louisa mentioned me, hey Jevi, like, have you checked the Google? Like, if you check the Asian American modernism, it's the avant-garde. It's our
The first hit. Yeah.
the ones that hit. It means like if in the future it's going to be a reference, for the future research, because it's like it became an academic paperwork, like, because me and Maureen, we really, do this extensive, like, who are the Filipino Americans in the museum collection, that like we have these kinds of same experiences that we have, like the idea of like our experience is not even it's not even unique, the idea of like suffering, all these kinds of like discrimination. So yeah, that's why, yeah, like but also our resources are limited because that time we also requesting, like Asian American works of like Yayo Kusama, Ruth Asawa, and also Filipino artist Osorio. But the thing is, like, they're not yeah, on viewed. So then it's like we're just making a project on Asian American that's right now on view that the Met, which is, we have this Wong and do Japanese artist and Naguchi work.
I just wanted to shift for a moment to Lambert, just kind of a wider angle on what we're talking about. As an artist and also as senior staff, Lam, do you have thoughts on kind of the broader community building? Like, do you have thoughts about like long-term how the Met and you in a senior staff position are supporting guards who are artists? And if how do you take like a Vanguard, like the piece, and make sure that the Met is building their support moving forward?
There's a lot going on right now. It's not just the great work of avant-garde, Maureen, Louisa, Jevi. It's all the artists.
Yeah.
Recently opened what we have here is the Employee Art Show, which in the 150 years that the Met has existed, it was open to the public for the very first time in its history, which was huge. Okay, for whatever reason, they never thought that it should be open to the public. Is it high art? Is it low art? But they never included it. This year, for the very first time, it happened, and it just blew up. We had so many people interested in seeing it. There were just so many amazing comments. We had critics coming to see it. We had NBC Nightly News. Lester Holt came and interviewed us on it. German television featured it, which is like the PBS of Germany. Al Jazeera. So it was all over the place, and it just showed. I mean, the director Max Hollein, he's always been an advocate of the guards, I think, and he sees the potential, and he sees how important it is to show their employees, guards, everybody, how their work is valid, and that's a game changer, and I'm looking forward to more shows like this in the future, and I think in the coming years, it's always going to be open to the public. With that said, we were also invited recently to the Smithsonian to speak about all of this, and that was really well received. Maureen, Louisa, Jevi, and I, it was just really nerve-wracking to be in front of over 800 security professionals all over the world, but I really think that we made an impact, and I think that other museums will follow.
Maureen just joined us, so I want to give her a chance. Hi, Maureen.
Hi.
Can you introduce yourself, your title at the Met, and then a little bit about your art practice?
Hi, I'm Maureen Catbagan. I work at the Met with Lambert and Jevijoe and Louisa, and I'm a senior security officer. I'm sorry, excuse me. That was my alarm. Could you say the question again?
If you could just share a little bit about your art practice.
My art practice lately has been revolving around my experience in the museum, seeing it in a different perspective, apart from its way of presenting itself, the things that you can't see, like sort of the invisible elements, whether it be labor or the architecture, the infrastructure, even like ephemeral things like shadows, the vitrine cases, the corners, like things that are kind of in their peripheral vision, and putting that into light just to create different experiences and sort of dimensions in the museum like embodying those kind of almost portals of experience. I've been kind of absorbed with dark matter, things that hold things together, yet are unseen and are very strong forces, yet we don't know a lot about it. So in those sense, my art is trying to investigate those kind of existences, or like moving towards those boundaries to sort of enrich our perception of how we experience things in reality, or the reality that we experience now.
So we've been talking for the past hour or so about philosophies of community, how that has fed the community building at the Met, as well as Lambert shared some video from, it's a Vanguard, right? The piece is called the Vanguard, which was really beautiful. And, you know, they shared that you took the lead on making that happen within the Met. So I would love if you know, had a chance to talk about how you came to the Met, and how that synergy of community, being Filipino American, and this, you know, the explorations that you are passionate about, how that's a huge question. Sorry. How did you come to the Met? And I guess, how does it feel to be part of this community, and how is that feeding your work? A little beyond what you've already said.
Yeah, I came to Met a while ago, like 20 years ago, and I initially went to New York because it has this aura of, you know, this is what you do to become like the art, to be a full artist. So there's this mystique about coming to New York historically, all of that for immigrants and everything. It's kind of a dream pusher. So I went to New York, focused on getting an art job to figure out the landscape, applying to galleries and museums. Originally, I worked in the Guggenheim Museum, the film department, and then I moved to the Met in the editorial department with catalogs and for the shows. I was the assistant to editor-in-chief. But then when I was doing the admin part, I felt that there was a divide in terms of like, I couldn't really do my practice because it was a 9-to-5 job. So it was a really difficult kind of negotiation for me because I came to New York to do art practice. And so I decided I'll just do security because of the schedule. It opened up an opportunity to get my MFA. So I decided to do security. And actually surprisingly, I learned a lot more in terms of being in security and being with art, and sort of having that almost 20 years of research. Just sitting there with the art is kind of a meditation. And I'm very grateful for it because it really influenced my work. My work grew, and the way that I perceive things grew because of me sitting in those galleries. And those are the span of 20 years, these things, like, you absorb these pieces in a different way. And in that sense, that's what people don't realize with this job, that, you know, in a certain perspective, people think that it's a lesser job, but in other ways, it's actually enriches you in ways that you can't even describe. So a lot of my art, even like my MFA work up till now, is an accumulation of that experience. And also in terms of community, I felt like the community that we have now is like, in terms of years of nurturing and talking to my colleagues about ideas, a lot of them are involved in the art in some form or another. A lot of them are practicing artists. And this job is ideal in that it gives you that space to think. I don't know if Patrick was mentioned before, Bringley. No, Patrick Bringley just came out with a book. He's a guard at the Met. He used to work in the New Yorker, and he spent 10 years as a guard, and he wrote this beautiful book that just came out. And I just began reading it, and it was just amazing how that he had a different motivation to go into the job, but what he got out of it is this beautiful book that also describes the experience of having this this organic community that revolves around sort of your life around being responsible to looking at the art, meditating, and also talking about it with colleagues?
I think your bond and collaboration with each other and support of each other is really enviable. And we have a few minutes left, but I really want to thank you all for doing this and sharing a little bit of your experience. Lam, as the sort of most senior person in this room, it feels like the Met is very intertwined with your identity and art practice. How do you think about yourself and your work in the future?
I mean, you're familiar with a lot of the work that I did early on. It's transformed considerably over the years. I went from large scale paintings to large scale wall installations and dabbled a little bit in sculpture. My work is always evolving. When I can. With the job that I currently have, I'm not gonna lie, it's been very difficult to continue making work regularly. Especially now having a child who's 12 now, can't believe it. But I try to incorporate all of that into the work, and mostly a lot of the work is involved. A lot of my work involves making costumes for my kid, who happens to be a Halloween baby. So a lot of it, all of my sculptural abilities and talents have been used to make these costumes. And I somehow would like to continue collaborating with Jevi and Louisa and Maureen and help creating kind of costumes for their performances. I would never do any performances. I would never. You could never see me up there doing a dance like Jevi and Maureen would do. But I will certainly contribute in making elaborate sculptures and costumes for you guys and backdrops. And maybe that's something that I'd like to do in the future.
Is there anything that you all are working on right now that's coming up? Or something that you would like to create together?
Right now, so me and Maureen, the avant-garde collective duo, like just got this residency at RU. So we're doing this kinds of like project. We're gonna have a show this June, and but also in general, like when I was thinking about like being a guard, also like what's the future, like doing. But now I'm more I mean, this is my practice right now, like the idea of like like just yeah, like Lambert said, like you just make work about your live experience. It could be your direct family, like me, my experience in here. Also like me and Maureen are doing like a research in Little Manila in Queens right now, because it's the first time that they co-name like a Little Manila. So the idea of like like I guess yeah, like now thinking about Carlos Villa again, like before, like people are like if you're Filipino American, even your work, you don't want to to put it like the Filipino identity, especially in contemporary art, because the idea of like who's gonna appreciate it, who's gonna buy it, who's who's your patron, blah blah blah. But then now it's beginning, I guess, because of this kinds of consciousness right now, like the Black Lives Matter and the anti-hate, Asian hate, like the idea of like like building community and the consciousness of like what are these there are also a lot of voices that are like the idea of like we are American too, like but also first and foremost we're artists, but also like we're also Filipino Americans, in which right now it's okay, it's like it's okay to make works that about Filipino American, the history of Asian American, the struggles of like a working class people. So I guess that's my direction work right now. They're very specific, that are based on like the history of Filipino American, but at the same time they are um connected to our experience right now, like me as an Asian American, as a immigrant of color, and also like just like working as a security guard, you know. And but also I just want to add the idea of like you know, like the like before me personally, I'm, you know, I have this kinds of frustration to be in the gallery, you know, gallery representation, and you know, like the idea of like you I every artist in New York who goes to New York, there's convoluted about the idea of like to be big, but the idea of big and successful is equated to financial gains and also to this kinds of art market and to have a gallery representation. But this is what I've learned to Carlos Villa when he was alive. Like he created this kinds of a sustainable art ecosystem. You know, like if you have a community, you know, could be work, it could be in the, you know, like your neighborhood, and then you create this kinds of art residency and you know, like art spaces, and then you connect it with the art centers and all these museums. I mean, you already, you know, but also you have a job to secure those, you know, so that you have a more freedom to create work. I guess you're gonna be fine. That's I felt right now. You know, as long as I have a secure job, I pay the bills, but then I make my art that is so freely that I can express myself, and then I have my community, and then I have this kinds of, you know, like projects. I mean, it could be fine. You know, I'm not even, you know, worried. You know, if my work are important in the future, they're gonna be sell in auction. So yeah.
Well, since Carlos was your teacher, and we're actually doing a quiet before with Trisha Lagasso and Mark Johnson on Worlds in Collision, but Worlds in Collision was one of the 10 best exhibitions. Art Forum named the retrospective one of the 10 most important exhibitions. How do you think Carlos would feel about that?
Oh my God. I mean, I don't know. It's
Would he
Carlos.
care?
Yeah, I tell you, he was just going to smile. It doesn't even, you know, like care all this. But for him, it's more grounded in the, you know, like that community. Those are just perks, but it's not the main goal, I guess. Like, you know, like being recognized right now in this show, because he done a lot. Like he tell me a story about New York. Like he was here, like horrible stories. That's why he went back to
Yeah.
San Francisco. But then he always said that wherever you go, Jev, is like you have to have a home base, you know, like the idea of like, that's why when I came here, like the first time I have to be, you know, like I have to set up my mind that I'm gonna be here, you know, like I have to commit myself, then I will consider it as home. It's not something like, oh, I'm gonna be here, then I'm going back, or if I'm not successful and go back to Philippines. You know, it's like, because once you commit yourself, this is your home, and then you're gonna find people who have the same, you know, sentiments, and then you're gonna create a community. So
Yeah. Well, I think that you all having found that with each other is something that people seek for years and years. So, I think Lambert had to hop off, but and he's back. I want to thank you all for being here, and I look forward to this being just really the start of a conversation, and following your work, and hopefully having you all back again to share more of your stories. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.